Jim Woodgate was worried about following Denise. I've got no worries about following Kathy and Martha. Uh, I know. Um, so great to be here. I must tell you, this has been a pretty emotional day, and we're celebrating 45 years. But I've been at a few of these Ontario workshops, and I know last year was the first one coming out of COVID and all that, and it was good. But this one's been pretty special. It's been very emotional hearing from so many of you up here. I read Terry's journal entry from 45 years ago today, and he would have just arrived in Prince Edward Island, and he could never have imagined that a group of over 200 committed, dedicated, passionate volunteers would be here today doing this. So thank you for being here. I'm a little disappointed that Denise Diaz is not wearing a Terry Fox Run t-shirt. Denise, you've been such a big part of Finish It and the t-shirt and the design of the t-shirt and everything else. So since you're wearing red, I actually brought a red shirt to wear today. And I'm not sure if anybody watches or follows English football, but my team is Sunderland. And if you've watched Welcome to Wrexham, that was inspired by Sunderland Till I Die. And my grandmother, my dad's mom, was born in Sunderland. And about an hour and a half ago, Sunderland won their championship league game, and they're moving up to the Premiership next year. So here we go. I'm wearing red. I need to add as well, on my presentation, you're not going to see chief operating or anything, or chief of this or chief. I'm not a chief of anything right now. So I spoke last year. I don't even remember what I spoke about. Martha had disappeared. I didn't know what was going on. I was asked to speak today. I didn't know if I was going to come to Toronto again, but I'm here. And I was asked to talk about April 12th and the celebration that happened that day. It was a bit of a whirlwind day, but it was an amazing day being in St. John's on April 12th. Where's that clicker? So I spent about 5 days in Newfoundland, visiting schools, doing community stuff in Newfoundland before April 12th. And then the morning of April 12th came, and I'll always remember Terry's very first words in his journal, and that was, "Today is the day it all begins." So a picture of Terry dipping in his artificial foot, and Terry and his best buddy, Doug Alward, 45 years ago. If you ever get to Newfoundland, you'll see this statue. Just spoke to Dave Tachira, who is here from Port Coquitlam, catching a plane to Newfoundland right now to get to Newfoundland. It was an amazing day. You always have to stop there. Terry at Outer Cove on the morning of April 12th, before he made his way to St. John's, collecting that bottle of Atlantic Ocean of water with the intention of, when he finished the Marathon of Hope, he'd be pouring that Atlantic water in the Pacific Ocean. I get asked all the time, where is that bottle? And we still have it. When our mom passed, there was two things that we couldn't find, and one was Terry's journal. Mama had it stored away in the bottom of a clothes hamper, buried underneath blankets and everything else, and the bottle was in a linen closet, way deep in a linen closet, hidden there. So we still have that bottle, and the water is still about that much in it. It's evaporated a little bit. So Terry, in St. John's Harbor, the guy to the left of the cameraman, his name is Ted Withers. I'll leave it at that for now. St. John's Harbor, as it looks now, compared to what it looked in that last photo, though, Doug from St. Catharines was talking about the Terry Fox being refitted. St. John's is where the Terry Fox is usually spends its time, spends its summers, and those are two Canadian icebreakers right there. Neither one of them is the Terry Fox, but sometimes you'll see pictures of the Terry Fox in behind the statue. It's pretty cool to see that. So me on that morning, we're in Newfoundland on April 12th. I've been in Newfoundland a number of times over the years. Mom, we used to go every few years to celebrate an anniversary. The first time was in 1990. Mom and Dad, Daryl, Judy, and I think a few years after that we went as well. We only really celebrated the anniversary or April 12th on anniversary years, and the weather's always been awful. Like terrible. That morning, it was beautiful, sunny. I think the temperature got up to about 8 or 9 degrees that day in Newfoundland. From there, I was going to be going to Toronto, and you never know if you're going to get out of St. John's. So Denise had arranged for my daughter Kirsten to be in Toronto just in case I don't get there. So that's the situation that it was. April 12th. I've always felt was an important day to mark. I think it's the most important day in Terry's story is April 12th. As he said in his journal, today is the day it all begins. Between 2010 and 2015, we didn't have an executive director. It was Martha and I kind of doing things, and we both thought it was more, we really wanted to see April 12th more celebrated. And Denise has kind of taken it to the next level with launching the T-shirt and launching the run and everything else, so it's been pretty cool. Debbie Curtis organizes the Terry Fox Run in St. John's. Terry heading up Temperance Street. I don't know how many of you have been in St. John's, where the statue is, but Terry's very first 100 yards were straight uphill. Terry wouldn't have wanted it any other way. So the idea that morning was Fred was going to go on a run and follow that first mile that Terry ran from mile 0 to City Hall. So Debbie joined me, as well as Carolyn Stacy, who is the principal of a high school that I had visited earlier in the week, and we started up Temperance Street. So there's Terry heading up that street. Looks very much different today than it did back then. But here we go. You can see how steep that hill is. And we're running straight up. It's pretty cool. You can see how we're coming up to the top now, making our corner. There's a whole bunch of pictures of people running. But along the way, the idea was we'd get running along Duckworth, and we'd be picking up other people. And these people they're volunteers for the Terry Fox Run in St. John's. We picked them up, and they joined us as we made our way to City Hall. Again, Terry running basically, it was basically the same part of Duckworth, heading to City Hall. Terry's there running as well. We stopped at the Newfoundland National War Memorial and picked up cancer researchers. And Dr. Sherry Christian, who works out of Memorial University and does research there, her and her team there waiting for us. So we picked them up, and we're actually, the bottom picture, we're right across. If you ever get to Newfoundland, you got to go in there. There's a store that I go into every time I'm there. It's called Fred's Records. So you got to go there. So we picked up the researchers, and we started to continue to run. We didn't get very far, and we had left the researchers way behind us. They were finding it hard to run in their long lab coats. So we kept going, and then again, Terry running there. We stopped at Prescott Street, the corner there, picked up some more volunteers. When we first went to Newfoundland in 2010, at that corner, there was still a constable directing traffic. He'd stand in the middle of the intersection and directing traffic. That doesn't happen anymore. So we continued on towards City Hall. And I don't know if this is... So we're just coming in the bottom picture into City Hall. Coming up into City Hall just like Terry was pretty much. And we arrive. When Terry and Doug arrived in St. John's, not very many people there, just a handful of people. So there's a big gathering there of volunteers and supporters in Newfoundland waiting for us to arrive at City Hall. And a group of people there. The person on the left, I found this picture the other day, and I'd never seen it before. I don't know if, Martha, you've ever seen it, but I'd never seen this. And her name is Greta Lush. And I've never heard of, I don't know if she was with the Canadian Cancer Society, maybe she was a city councillor, so I looked her up. She passed in 2012, and she volunteered with Wheelchair Sports. So Terry probably met her in 1978 when he was in Newfoundland representing BC playing wheelchair basketball at the Canada Summer Games. So on the right, Donna Ball, Donna Green. I'll mention Donna Green in a minute, but Terry had befriended Donna. They exchanged letters. The bottom left, her name is Margot Reed, and she was a president of the Canadian Cancer Society back in 1980. So they tried, Donna did a really good job. She had about 12 people come that day that we were there, back on April 12th this year, that were there 45 years ago. And Margot Reed was there, was the president of the Canadian Cancer Society. Her other connection is, I first met Margot 2 years ago when my wife Teresa and I were in New York for the Terry Fox Run in New York City. Her son-in-law, Tom Clark, is the Consul General for New York. And you might know Tom Clark, he was a reporter for CTV. And that's her, the guy on the right is Bill Strong. Bill Strong was the representative for the CCS back then that supported Terry and Doug while they were in St. John's. They met Terry at the airport when they arrived, and later on in Corner Brook, they also were there, and he's now a minister, a reverend. Finally, the researchers showed up, and they're at City Hall. Terry, Dorothy Wyatt was the mayor of St. John's at the time. So they still talk about, 45 years later, they still talk about Dorothy Wyatt. She was quite a woman and character. So they didn't have the robe, mayor's robe anymore. That doesn't exist, but Danny Breen, who is the mayor of St. John's now, put the chain over me, and that was kind of cool. They wanted to make sure I didn't leave with it, though. But, Terry and Dorothy Wyatt raising the flag, and then Danny and I had the chance to do it. Video reel, raising the flag there. You guys beat them to it. So, so after that flag raising, we went inside, and Kirk Leach, who is the community director in Newfoundland, and Donna had organized this bit of a gathering. There was some speeches and all of that, and that's Donna speaking. Behind her is a young fellow named Landon Simpson. He spoke afterwards. They showed the finished video. They also showed a video of kind of a cause for support with some of the research being talked about. It was an amazing day. I spoke, and then the group at the bottom is the Terry Fox Committee in St. John's. So, and now Terry's leaving City Hall, heading out on the highway to get out in St. John's, heading up the hill, and at one point Dorothy Wyatt joined Terry on that. And I don't know if you've seen the video. You've got to see the video. If you can find the video, it's amazing to watch as she gets out of the vehicle and starts running with Terry in her high heels and everything else. So, so the last thing, last thing I had to do is Kirk drove me back to our car back at mile zero. I had to head to the airport for a 2 o'clock flight so I could get to Toronto. And so Kirk and I got this picture taken. And Kirk talks about this all the time. We happen to be there. Okay, we want a picture taken, but who's going to take it? And there just happened to be a guy visiting there from Vancouver, and as a tourist, and we were there with him about 10 or 15 minutes chatting about it, about Terry and everything else, and so it was kind of cool. So I jump on a plane, head to Toronto. I landed about, I don't know, it was about 4:30, 5 o'clock, something like that. I jump on the up train, head to Union Station. I walk across the street. Martha's husband, Peter, is waiting for me at Royal York. I hand off my luggage, and then I go back to the arena because we're going to the Leafs game, and I'm looking for Denise. Finally, she finds me, and we go inside, and the group on the top, Michael Mazza, you might recognize him, John Kiersey, Neil Johnson, who was here earlier. I'm not too sure who the other two are, and my daughter, Kirsten. They'd been out drinking before the game, so. And then the bottom, Denise, Martha, and Jonathan. So to take this picture, we had come out from the restaurant that we had supper at, and I went and sat down, and then I got up and I stepped over the seat in front of me and then over the next one and stood on the seats to take this picture. The usher that was in the area came over to me and gave me heck about standing on the seats, and she said, if you break it, you're gonna pay for that seat. So I said, okay, sorry about that, but anyway, I continued on. Let me play this video. So just like last week, the Leafs were just skating in circles. So this is where they played the Finish It video on the screen. The score is 0-0. Again, Matthews couldn't score a goal, so. And this is in the Edward Jones. Denise was taking me all over the arena. We ended up in the Edward Jones suite, and again, Michael and John and Neil Houston. My daughter Kirsten is in the middle there, to the left of Michael, and the Edward Jones team in their suite. They were there. And then I was interviewed by Kyle Bukakis and for Sportsnet for Hockey Night in Canada, and it was pretty cool to be able to do that. And then Rob Baker. It was unfortunate. I cut my hair before we got there, so. And then Johnny Fay as well with his family, all of them wearing the Finish It t-shirt. And you can so it's pretty cool. And then Denise was enjoying. Yeah. They ended up winning in overtime. Yeah. So I had to take this picture because after being introduced and walking back and forth a couple times to get to Edward Jones, and then going to do the interview with Kyle, coming back, and now this woman stops and she wants to get her picture. And after we take the picture, I say to her, you just finished giving me heck for standing on those chairs. So this is Cindy Cracknell Mobley, and I only know that because I blew up her tag that she's got, and I think she's been working for the Leafs for a long time. So So if I can, really quickly, I'm not sure how much time I have, but I'm just gonna read, I'm gonna read what I read in St. John's at the event that happened in City Hall. So, like again, thank you to everybody for being here, but today is the day it all begins. And on April 12th, 1980, these were Terry's very first words that he wrote in his journal. After running 12 and a half miles that day and before he fell asleep, Terry wrote those words. Terry could never have known how prophetic those words would be 45 years later. And the impact of what he started in St. John's has had on cancer research and the lives of those with cancer. A few days earlier, on April 8th, after a long day, a long 2-day journey from home in Port Coquitlam and being on 9 different flights, Terry and his best friend Doug arrived in St. John's. Terry wrote in his journal, "What a relief. We finally made it. It was great to be off those planes for good. At the airport, there were several people to meet us, including people from the JCs and Newfoundland Cancer Society. It was a very warm welcome. Here we met Bill Strong, who was a very friendly person and who would be at our disposal during our stay. We learned that our luggage may not have arrived, and our van, which we thought had been in St. John's for a month, was somewhere between Nova Scotia and Newfoundland." Terry and Doug would receive this kind of hospitality and support during their travels right through Newfoundland, with Newfoundlanders bringing Terry and Doug into their homes to feed them and to give them comfortable place to sleep for the night. Long before Terry was in St. John's to start his run, Terry was in St. John's in 1978 to compete in the Canada Winter Games in wheelchair basketball. I mentioned that earlier. He met Summer Games volunteer Donna Ball, Donna Green at the time. Terry returned home, and at some point they exchanged letters. It was around this time that Terry was thinking about what his life purpose was. He wrote to Donna, "The answer is to try and help others." Terry was impacted by the life-changing experience of seeing others on the cancer ward in 1977, and in the fall of 1979 wrote a letter to the Canadian Cancer Society and companies like Adidas and Ford and looking for support for his run across Canada. Terry wrote, "There were faces with brave smiles and the ones that had given up smiling. There were feelings of hopeful denial and feelings of despair. My quest would not be a selfish one. I could not leave without knowing that these faces and feelings would still exist, even though I would be set free from mine. Somewhere the hurting must stop." It was apparent that Terry was more concerned about the pain and sickness of others than he was about how he was doing himself. Terry would often say during his Marathon of Hope in 1980 that getting cancer made him a more caring person. Terry wanted to give those with cancer hope. After Terry dipped his artificial foot in the Atlantic waters of St. John's Harbor to start his run across Canada, Terry ran up Temperance Street towards Duckworth, running with and interviewing Terry as they went up that steep 200-yard climb with CBC reporter Ted Withers. As he's losing his breath and struggling getting the words out because of running uphill, Ted Withers asked Terry, "What are you worth on the hoof?" Terry asks, with a bit of a question in his voice, "How much am I going to raise?" And he goes, "Yeah, I'd like to set a goal of $1 million. Ted asks, "Do you think that's attainable?" "Yeah, I think that's attainable. If people want to help and get involved, I think it's possible." Terry and Doug made their way through Newfoundland, gaining more support and funds raised along the way, and then Terry arrived in Port aux Basques on May 6th. His original $1 million goal changed after learning that Port aux Basques raised $1 for every person in town. Terry asked himself, if they can raise $1 for every person, why not raise $1 for every Canadian? Terry's new goal, $24 million. Terry arrived in Cape Breton, ran through the Maritime provinces, Quebec, and well into Ontario. It was said that Terry was bringing Canada together. Canadians watched as Terry painfully ran each of those 42 kilometers every day. We were inspired by Terry's sacrifice Terry was making in every step that he took to help others. We were moved by Terry's selflessness, his honesty, his integrity, every time he stopped in towns between St. John's and Thunder Bay. And when he was speaking about why he was running across Canada. Terry expected nothing of himself, but all he asked was that you give $1 and you're a part of the Marathon of Hope. In the press conference today, after Terry was forced to stop his run in Thunder Bay on September 1st because of the return of cancer, Terry said, "I don't feel that this is unfair. That's the thing about cancer. I'm not the only one. It happens to other people. I'm not special. This just intensifies what I did. It gives it more meaning. It will inspire more people. I just wish that people would realize that anything is possible if you try, that dreams are made if you try." Terry came home to Port Coquitlam, and Canadians from coast to coast to coast sent all kinds of love and support to Terry through cards and letters, along with donations. Terry realized that goal of raising $1 for every Canadian. On September 2nd, 1980, Isidore Sharp sends to Terry a telegram. It said, "Terry, you started it. We will not rest until your dream to find a cure for cancer is realized." Before Terry passed away on June 28, 1981, 9 months after his run stopped in Thunder Bay, he knew that there would be an event held to raise money for cancer research in his name. 2.5 months after Terry passed, in September of 1981, the very first Terry Fox runs were held in communities and schools across Canada and around the world. Terry said when in Scarborough, "Even if I don't finish, we need others to continue. It's got to keep going without me." 45 years later, Canadians continue to do their part in finishing what Terry started. 45 years later, Canadians continue to do their part finishing what Terry started in St. John's. Not finishing the running of the miles from Thunder Bay to Vancouver Island, but finishing Terry's goal of eradicating forever the suffering that cancer causes. Today, almost $1 billion has been raised for cancer research in Terry's name. More importantly than the dollar amount is the impact the money has had on cancer research and those who have been given more time with their families or have survived their cancer diagnosis. Canada has some of the best researchers in the world. Progress is being made every day, and as I've traveled across the country, I've had a wonderful opportunity to tour various research labs in Vancouver, Calgary, Winnipeg, Toronto, Kingston, Montreal, Moncton, and St. John's. And it's amazing and emotional to see how much pride those researchers have in knowing that the money that they're using is coming from Terry Fox runs raised by you guys. And so much pride to know that they're part of the Marathon of Hope Cancer Network that Jim talked about earlier. Terry said in an interview a few months before he passed, "Maybe now, instead of being afraid and saying, well, look how hard Terry started, or how hard Terry tried, and he still got cancer, people will say, look at the effort he put in, and he died of cancer. We're really going to have to try harder in order to beat it, try harder than we ever have before." So again, thank you for allowing me to be here and share the day of April 12th of this year and the start of Terry's Marathon of Hope. Terry's family and everyone at TFF, thank you for trying hard to beat it. Thank you for representing communities in Ontario, and Dave was here from Port Coquitlam, and those like you in towns and villages and cities across Canada that volunteer and give your time to organize Terry Fox runs. Thank you for being the foundation of why and how we got where we are today, and why we will continue to be the best peer-to-peer cancer fundraising organization around. Thank you for getting us closer to Terry's goal so we can finish it through cancer research. And as Terry said when he was running up Temperance Street, if people want to help and get involved, I think it's possible. Thank you so much.